Welcome to the Dell Technologies PodFerence After Show. I'm your host, Jill Schlesinger from the Jill on Money podcast. Now, listen to this. Here's our disclaimer. This video meeting may be live streamed via the internet or one or more social media platforms and may be recorded and played back in portions or in its entirety by Odyssey, Group M, or Dell on air, on their websites, on their social media pages. So, by participating in the video meeting, you are consenting to the use and distribution of the video meeting, including your image, likeness, statements, and actions. If you do not consent, leave now. That's very threatening. Anyway, if you engage in any inappropriate activity or behavior during the video meeting, it just means we're going to catch drinks later, but you may be removed from the video meeting with or without notice. Okay, now, that's pretty brutal to say that all in front, because now I want you guys to keep listening and talk. We are here to talk about the unique challenges that small businesses have confronted amid this crazy, once in a generation, scary pandemic, and how people and small business owners are adapting to a post-COVID world. Joining us today, Rhett and Link, hosts of the Ear Biscuit show, self-proclaimed entertainers, which is hard for me to say. So guys, say that word for me, will you please?
Internetainers.
Entertainers. Is that a made-up thing?
Yeah, we made that up. We do that a lot.
Sure. It's something, it's like many things that we've tried. It did not catch on, and it's just our thing.
Why is it that you have better hair than I do, both of you? That's very annoying, and I've got jealousy right
well,
now.
that's not true, but I like how this is starting.
Already you're feeling good. You're like, well, I thought she was the boring financial chick, and now we actually have someone with a personality. This isn't so bad
She
after
likes
all.
our hair. This can continue. You now have my consent.
Thank you for your consent. I accept it. You guys have a friendship that spans a lifetime. So you started, you started back in first grade.
Yeah.
This, of course, reminds me of my interview with Ben and Jerry, but much earlier, I guess. But I remember saying, well, why were you drawn to one another? And they were like, we were the slowest, fattest Jewish kids in the class. So we became friends. What drew you to one another in first grade?
Exactly the same factors.
It was drawing, actually.
Yeah, it was.
We were held in from recess on the first day of first grade for scribbling nasty words on our desks. Not much different than how they're scribbling all over this desk here on our Ear Biscuit set. But we were punished, held in from recess, and our assignment was to color pictures of mythical beasts. So that's where we met. That's where we became friends.
That's kind of awesome. And so where did you guys grow up?
In Bowie's Creek, North Carolina.
Interesting. Okay. But we're talking to you. You're in California now because you've hit it big. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're in Burbank. It gets no bigger.
God, Television City. You guys run a production company and it's called Mythical Entertainment.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how you started out as, besides being friends, like how did this business evolve? Tell us the origin story. I love these.
Yeah, well, we started working together professionally making YouTube videos way back, like the year that it started, essentially, like 2006. And everything that we did up until moving to California was always to how do we keep putting videos on the internet. And it wasn't until we moved out here, actually for a TV project that was related to stuff that we were doing, that we started hiring more than one person, right? We hired someone who hired someone who hired someone. And again, it was all based around how can we just make these YouTube videos? And we've got a team that is producing the YouTube videos, but that's kind of the only focus. And it wasn't until we got to about a dozen people where like, I think this might be like a production company, right?
Kind of a thing.
Yeah. And just slowly from that, because that year, the year that we, went from one employee to two employees was 2014, 2014. And then slowly it's just, we've continued to add and continued to build out from that point.
Yes. And now we have over 100 employees working over and creating a variety of web series and digital properties across a number of brands, some of which don't have anything to do with our faces, but a good amount of them do, like this podcast, Ear Biscuits, and our show, Good Mythical Morning daily show, which is kind of the vehicle from which we then promote everything else we're doing as a studio. So it's been a wild ride, and it's living the dream.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's so funny because I always think it's really hard. I was a small business owner a long time ago, but I guess I was a reluctant business owner. I didn't really enjoy it. I felt like it was so hard, and I really never dreamt of like, oh, I want to own my own business, but it just happened. And I have found it to be, I don't know, the management stuff I hated. I love doing my job, but how have you found that piece of it as you've grown so quickly and so famously and frankly in front of everybody?
Yeah, we refer to our business as a creator-led company. I mean, because our focus has always been, what are we creating? What do we want to put out into the world next? And who can we work with to make that happen? And then you start to, people hire people, and you start to realize, oh, I need to develop as a leader, and I need to hire people who can handle that aspect of the business side of things, and the strategy side of things, and the production and logistics, all of these things that they're means to an end of creating things or investing in other creators who want to create things. So because we're driven by the product and expressing ourselves, it's every hire was a matter of necessity and a matter of, investing in people that we trust, that can do things better than we can. Yeah. And you just find yourself, you've backed into a studio environment.
So it wasn't the plan necessarily, right? But it was, we had something that we wanted to create, and we knew that we could hire somebody who could do this particular thing better than we could. And then ironically, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, it has been difficult, and it has been a lot of work managing it, and also trying to be creative in the midst of it. But you kind of get past critical mass where you really do. If you have to get past that point, but as a creator, you can get to a point where you really have created margin for yourself, and you can work on other more speculative creative things. We're constantly working on things that don't necessarily translate into a YouTube video that hopefully people might see at some point. And we can do those things, still do all the digital stuff that we do, and still do, bring people to the show and the podcast, manage the business, but also do some things that are more a passion project. But it took a while to get to that point, for sure.
Do you feel like there was a moment where you said, some of this is beyond us? Do you have like a chief operating officer, or do you guys split responsibilities? And if so, how do you split the responsibilities between the two of you?
Yeah, we have a chief operating officer who handles all the business and strategy, and then other people working for him to help on that front. We also have a chief creative officer. I mean, one of our first hires was Stevie, who we hired to produce a show that we had a specific episode order from Google. They were funding it. So that was a milestone moment where it's like, okay, we've got an order for a show that's bigger than anything we've done. We need to hire someone to produce it. We had a lot of creative synergy.
Ooh, I love that word.
So then she's moved into that chief creative officer role, and then Brian Flanagan has moved into like the chief operating officer business role, and then we lean on the two of them very heavily to provide a lot of leadership themselves, and then we're providing that creative guidance and business guidance, just basically going on instinct and their expertise.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what was going on pre-pandemic. Let's wind the clock back. Let's go back to, February of last year. And you were like firing on all cylinders, and then describe what happened as some of the production starts to get shut down, and, where you guys are, where you're in your personal lives, with in terms of relationships and children, like what's going on for you guys at that moment?
Yeah. So, we're both married with kids. And we were doing our thing as a business, making Good Mythical Morning, doing our podcast, other projects that we do. We're traveling on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden, COVID happens, and very quickly, it becomes very clear that we cannot continue the production in the same way that we had. Now, luckily, we had a number of episodes of the show in the bank because we do shoot ahead of time, so we can kind of adjust and do other things. But it quickly went from our full studio crew in here, making the show on our set, in our studio, to us having to make the show from home, separated individually. So literally, Link set up in his dining room, I'm set up in my living room. We're filming ourselves, we're lighting ourselves, we're
hating ourselves.
I mean, really, I feel the same way. I mean, really. God.
Yeah. And so we were making a lot of the same adjustments that a lot of the late night shows were making. But it was at that moment that we realized a couple of things. Number one, how much we valued our team and the way that they allow us to do what we do best. It was this weird regression back to the early days when we did everything ourselves. And you start realizing that I
don't want to do that.
I don't enjoy doing everything. And B, I'm also not great at doing everything. It's so much better when you have this division of labor and you've got people doing what they're passionate about and what they're good at, and everybody brings their best thing to the table and you create a great product. But we had to do it that way for a while. I mean, it wasn't until the middle of the summer when we got back to a place where we could have a very limited crew, less than half of the size that we were working with, and asking all of those crew members to make some pretty big sacrifices. And everybody was making sacrifices in their personal life to be like, hey, I'm going to be coming. Hey, I'm coming into this studio.
He doesn't mean like slitting the throat of a goat.
Right. Well, there was the one goat, but it was, everybody's masked up, but they're not able to do a lot of the things that they would do because we're all kind of worried about the collective safety of the people who are coming in here to shoot.
I love goats, by the way.
I mean, I think that the goat lobby is about to come down hard on you guys. So
I love
glad
goats.
you clarified that. For the record,
any goats.
Love the goat cheese. I think and maybe even like a goatee in general. Just saying. Okay, bad puns are over. Now, did you guys have to furlough or lay anyone off during in the beginning of this, or were you fortunate to be able to retain folks?
No, we were fortunate to keep everybody on board. We were thinking about the local businesses that were like left in such a lurch. I mean, as long as we could find a way to make our content, people still had their internet connection, they could watch us. It was just we can find a new way to make our show and to get it out there and tell all the mythical crew members, hey, if we need to do things differently, we know that you're gonna step up, and they did. And if sometimes you're sitting on your hands, it's okay. I mean, we told them that. We said there may be times when you're not able to do anything, and don't worry, we're gonna get through this, and we're in a fortunate position to be able to create internet content, and our business and the infrastructure is not completely shut down like it is for so many, and our hearts go out to them and still do.
And to the goats as well.
And to the goats.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. And did you guys feel like pressure? Was there advertising revenue that pulled back? Was there, did you kind of have to sort of take it on the chin for a while? What was going on financially?
Things dropped pretty significantly, like immediately, on two fronts. I mean, number one, just the amount of revenue that was coming through YouTube, the CPM, just the bottom dropped out because there was so much uncertainty, right? People stopped spending. They didn't know what was going to happen. And then also we had to change our release schedule from Monday through Friday to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we were doing these episodes that were honestly less engaging because it was just the two of us at our homes, on a video call. So all those things combined, the drop was, and we had basically made this, like Link was getting at a second ago, we had made this commitment. We told our staff, we were like, our intention, now we can't make promises, but our intention is that everyone stays on board this year, right? And this is happening in the midst of us hearing, other companies laying people off in droves, right? Other media companies in town. But thankfully, things began to stabilize both in terms of our production, what we could pull off. We got back to Monday through Friday. And about that same time, things began to turn around in the advertising world. And I think people were like, okay, we think we know how we're going to navigate this.
Yeah.
And so we got back to a pretty healthy place that ironically, as we, round this turn, where we've actually got more employees than we had at the beginning of this thing. We've actually been able to expand.
It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, and when you were, I know you guys just, you just recorded this episode. And so as you went through the past year, and you recorded this episode, is there something that came up for you that was different or instructive, or that you didn't even realize you were feeling until you were talking about it?
Yeah, I think the process of going back through incrementally the adjustments that we made over the past year. I mean, it's amazing how quickly you forget how difficult it was. And it was a really good exercise in gratitude to go back through and to see what we weathered. And so it was really a case to celebrate, not what the two of us have done, but what all of our employees did. And like Rhett said, the sacrifices that they were also making and how we were figuring this out together and finding a way forward is something that you wouldn't sign up for it, but then because we were able to weather it, and we're just grateful that we learned a lot. And I think a lot of trust was built, that we're all doing our best and we believe in what we're doing. And we're poised to do even greater things on the backside of this. But so the process was, it gave a lot of good perspective.
I think it's interesting because, there's, different kinds of hardships that we go through. And I felt like this past year sort of challenged everybody emotionally to really sort of look within yourself. I'm lucky enough I can actually work. Okay, check. Or I'm healthy. My family's healthy. I'm good. That's good. Now I can work. That's good. And then you've got this thing called a business. And I think it's kind of cool that, like, as you think about what the past 14 months has meant to you, that you say, yeah, you know what? We stuck together and we came through it stronger. Yeah. So as you now look into the post-pandemic world, what are you anticipating taking from, like, the COVID reality? What comes with you besides that gratitude? Is there something fundamentally different that you're going to use in the business?
Yeah, I think a number of things come to mind. I mean, one thing, in terms of that connection that we built, there's a strangely sort of ironic thing that happens when you're not getting together. Most of your contact with your other employees is via a Zoom call, but you're kind of seeing them in their personal lives, right? Everybody's at home. Everybody is working from home, and everyone is making these decisions in their personal lives, sort of collectively, that then contribute to the business. So there's been this weird sort of blurring of the lines between the personal and the professional that we've done as a group, that I think has just strengthened the bond and strengthened the ability for us to communicate. Like, we've had to communicate, whereas, before the pandemic, a lot of our company-wide meetings, it would be like, hey, here's the stuff that we're celebrating. Here's this new project that's successful. Now, a fair amount of that time is spent talking about, all right, here's the adjustments that we're making as a company in regards to COVID. And these are the adjustments that we need you to continue to make or to begin to make in your personal life in order to be a part of this team. I just think that has gotten us to a place where when the next thing happens, hopefully it's not anything like COVID, but any kind of challenge that we can face as a company, we've developed the tools to know, and the confidence to kind of know we can get through this, and we kind of have learned more about each other.
And I think there may be scenarios where working from home is now a viable option.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of meetings that would require a lot of travel time, unnecessary investment, that you can just pop on a video chat and have the meeting, get everything accomplished. So I think these are all now fair game before they really weren't on the table.
Do you think before you went through this, what would you have said if I, interviewed you in February of last year and I said, well, what was the toughest thing you've gone through? What was the hardship that you guys endured? What would you have said prior to the pandemic for the business, not personally?
I mean, there's been a couple of times, to maybe 3 times, when in our career we felt like there was a definitive no, like a show got canceled, and we were just starting over. So there have been defining moments where we were just beginning from nothing, and so it is very scary. You feel like your livelihood has been threatened. We didn't have a lot of employees for those times, so it felt different.
Yeah.
But it was those are scary times too. I think I would have pointed to those times.
Right.
But now, I definitely think about this past year.
I know, it's so crazy. And it's weird. Like, I used to be a trader on the floor of the commodities exchange in New York. And I remember the very first time I went through like one of those agonizing drops that happened in one day, and you freak out. And it is a weird thing that, like, as other times occur in your life, you sort of get like, okay, I'm not happy about this, but I understand it and I know how to process it. I've lived through it. And so I think it is, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a small business owner who has said, oh yeah, I've never had a problem or a near death experience with the business, or I haven't had to like kick myself to like get off my pity pot and start over. So what advice would you give to people who have been knocked on their butts, who, this last 14 months may have snuffed out a dream? And what advice you give in terms of maybe they need to take that first step forward? What can you offer them?
Well, I think most people, regardless of what your vocation is, I think that most people are doing, especially a business owner, they're doing a job that somehow intersects with their personal passion, right? And that's usually how you get it. You think, I think I can do that, or I really want to do that. And I think that in these really difficult times, you kind of have to go back to just that. What was that core motivation that opened this window for you, and kind of connect with that, the passion, because it's like when you're in a relationship and you're going through challenges, and then you're like, remind me why I'm in love with this person. And I think if you can go back to those foundational principles and sort of fall in love again, it can give you motivation to get through really difficult challenges.
Are we still talking about goat?
I know. Wait, who, what? Do your spouses work in the business?
No,
they are.
thank goodness.
I would say, yes, not directly, but very much. They are one of the keys to us being sane and being able to do what we do.
Yeah.
Wait, say more about that. I want to hear that. Talk more about that.
Well, I mean, frankly, they're basically the reason that we're doing what we're doing. I mean, the origin story is we were performing a stupid song at our best friend's rehearsal dinner, and it kind of went over well. And on the way back home, they were like, you guys should do this. This is what you should do. You should entertain people. And I think there's something here for real. And we had not really contemplated that they would trust us with that as we were beginning to build families. And so they kind of gave us the go ahead back in the day, and have been incredibly supportive and involved since that point.
Yeah, I think now they help us stay focused on the human aspect of what we're doing. We can get so caught up in what we want to create even now, or even if you look through a certain lens, or you're just wearing a certain hat as a business leader, you can forget the humanity associated with it. So when I bring home the things that I'm upset about or concerned about, and I'm talking to Christy about those things, and I know this is true for Jesse too, they help provide this filter and a reality check of, first of all, how awesome our jobs are, and how much opportunity we have that goes beyond just the things that we want to make and how funny we can be, but how can we be better people? How can we be better business leaders and connect with people and really not forget that there's other things that matter.
Yeah.
I know you can sort of go down the rabbit hole, right? You get like seduced into thinking like the most important thing that I can concentrate on is my navel. That navel, it is the most important thing. And it's good to have a partner who basically says, lifts you up and says, get your head out of that and let's move on to what's important. So I think that is a great piece of advice. If you were to go back and look at some of the things that you've done, what were some early mistakes that were avoidable if you had, really stopped or had the time, or you had, if you guys were mentoring yourselves, what would you have told yourselves that you were like, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that?
I think a big part of that for us is learning when you should listen to yourself and when you should listen to others, right? I think that if you take the extreme side of either one of those options, if you're only listening to yourself, there's only going to be tragedy. And if you only listen to other people and you never trust yourself, you're going to have this same result, right? I think that there are times when we look back, would be like, we deferred to someone because of they were in a position of authority, or that we thought that they had some particular experience and we really should have trusted our instinct. And then there are other times where you look back and say, oh, we should have gotten some advice from someone who had been through something similar. So, I'm kind of thinking in terms of like some of our early creative, things of deferring to people and not just kind of going with our gut. So it's, over a decade later, I think you kind of know, like, all right, I know what I don't know, and I know what I do know. All right, I'm learning that as we go. We're getting better at knowing what we do know and what we don't know, and then when you need counsel and when you need to trust yourself.
That's awesome, Mike. To have that, I think that wisdom is amazing, because I think when you look back on any of us who've owned businesses, you look back and you're like, I'm such an idiot. Why did I think I could do that myself? I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And, sometimes it works out okay, but like the pain you had to go through that could have been avoided is certainly like, you would like to have those, I'd like to have that natural hair color back, which I've now lost because of those experiences. So, you've got this great sense of humor. You have such a beautiful relationship. And I think that people really like being part of that relationship. How do you manage that? I had heard a lot of the Duplass brothers talk about how they needed to sort of take a break from each other emotionally. You guys are basically in each other's lives so intimately. So talk about how you manage that.
Yeah, we use the analogy of like we're an old married couple more so than we're like brothers, because we decided to create this partnership. It wasn't just something that genetics and blood did for us, right? So
there was a blood oath at one point, but
there was. I think it's, we're determined to maintain our personal friendship, and we have conversations where we talk about our feelings, and if we're angry or scared or hurt by the other person, I mean, we invest in our relationship. We've each been married to our wives for over 40 years, and then we've got 40 cumulatively.
Let's say each,
if you add it up.
Right.
I mean, we would have gotten married really young if we each were married over 40 years. And a lot of what we learned from maintaining our relationships with our wives, I mean, we also apply in terms of open communication with each other.
Yeah, it's all about communication.
I just interviewed Esther Perel, and she has, these two great podcasts. And I am fascinated about work relationships, because I think we spend so much time with our partners at work, with the people, our co-workers. And she really just basically said, everyone walks into a relationship with emotional dowries. And, she doesn't even call it baggage because she doesn't want it to be negative. She's like, that's where we come from. And it's great that you actually talk about these things. And I think that that's maybe a great lesson as a business owner, as like a really helpful way to navigate that. What other things do you guys do to kind of help yourselves succeed? Do you have some sort of habits or meetings, or do you have like boundaries? What else do you do?
Therapy.
Yeah.
I love that.
I would say,
Mhm.
yeah, even with your last question, I was thinking, what do I wish I would have done differently? And it was like, probably start therapy a decade earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get started. Sometimes it's hard to continue, but it's always worthwhile.
Yeah, yes, therapy has been huge. I think another thing is we regularly sort of evaluate what our days look like and the number of things that we're doing and who's doing what and what is not necessary for me to do, what's not necessary for Link to do, what's not necessary for either of us to do. And that's kind of a constant evaluation. But every year, usually there is this sort of hard evaluation of like, okay, we have to continue. When you have radical growth that we've experienced as a business, you have to continue to make radical adjustments personally so that you're like, I mean, I can have all the therapy I want and it will not be enough to get through if you just keep adding things onto your plate. So you have to really manage that plate and continue to be like, okay, as a company, we don't need to do that, or we do need to do that as a company, but someone else can be thinking about this 99% of the time, and we can have input in, a 10-minute meeting once a month. And so we've been pretty aggressive about evaluating our time, analyzing our time, and sort of recentering every single year. And I think that's one of the reasons that we've been able to grow without being completely burnt out, which the burnout thing is something that you see amongst YouTubers all the time, right? They're just doing too many things and they just keep thinking, well, I'll make the plate bigger, but it's limited.
So besides the Upper West Side lesbian Jew that you're talking to now, who do you really want to interview and have on your show? Who do you want to who's like the get that you're dying to get?
Well, after a year of not having any guests on Good Mythical Morning, I think we're getting close to being willing to have guests again. We somehow we haven't gotten tired of talk to each other.
Right.
But who is that person?
Well, we have a long-standing admiration, borderline worship for Lionel Richie, and he has influenced many things, including we just brought back something, or we are bringing it back. It's back. I never know when we have actually released something, but we call it Project Lionel. In our dorm room, of course, we went to school together. In our dorm room, we had Lionel Richie's self-titled, album where he's stretched out in the middle and in the bifold. And we would put it on the wall, and we had everybody who came into our dorm room do that exact same pose that we called just the Lionel pose on the couch. And we took their picture and put it all up on the wall. And a couple of times over the past 20 years, we brought that back and asked our fans to do it. And most recently, we brought it back again, Project Lionel, getting everybody to pose like Lionel. And we had Sugar Ray Leonard on the show like 2 years ago, who's a friend of Lionel, and called Lionel while he was in the studio and showed him our wall of all the other celebrities who've done the Lionel pose. So Lionel knows about it.
He did not. So we want Lionel to do the pose.
We got to get Lionel to do the Lionel pose.
Jill, you're going to have to use your connects.
Oh, I'm not sure I got the connects to Lionel, but it's weird when you have someone who's the object of like your own fandom, and then basically how I'm conducting this interview is particularly amazing because I'm a fan, you see. And did you see the professionalism that I wove into all of this? And yeah, it's amazing. I think it's a funny thing because I just, I'm so drawn to how your relationship has become this beautiful marriage of creativity, but also authenticity, which is an annoying freaking word. But just like that, like you're real guys, you really love each other, you have a lot of opinions. It's really engaging, and it is it's really somewhat I guess it's sort of like, not, I don't want to say it's just, it's like there's an attraction to it. People feel attracted, girls, guys, doesn't matter. Like there's something about seeing two guys who are just all out there with each other and got each other's backs and kind of love each other. I think it's great. So
Thank you.
it really is. It's fun. It's fun to be part of that. Either as a voyeur or and participating or
Wow.
So I feel like you're doing it's a great thing. It's like you have great energy, and it's wonderful that you're sharing that with the universe. And I'm glad you're making money doing it. That's the thing,
Thanks for saying that.
I mean, it's great. It's really great. So, okay, before we go, asking folks to share with us like kind of their streaming surprises, not like, so someone's like, oh, Gretchen Rubin's like, you know what? I never watched Mad Men. So she watched 92 freaking episodes of Mad Men during the pandemic. That's a lot. And not all of them are good, let's be honest. Any special discoveries that you have found during pandemic streaming?
I have found so much trashy television. My wife and I watch a lot of trashy reality TV. And the thing I am most ashamed of is 60 Days In. Have you seen this? This is the show where some sheriff, I think in Arizona, has people who go into prison as these moles for him, and they tell all the inmates that they're filming like a documentary, but really he's using these normal people who want to go and be on this reality show to try to like get information about what's going on inside the jail. And it feels so unethical. But I just can't
love that feeling.
I just can't stop watching it. I can't stop watching it.
All right. I'm going to skip that one. I'm just going to say right now that that's fine. Good. Okay. Next. What do you got for me?
Do I need to confess something too? I thought that was good enough for the book.
No, you could just say like, you know what? I stumbled upon this thing, or I watched 82 seasons of Guiding Light that I found online, buried under a rock. I don't know.
I think you have to say what your family's been doing.
The only thing we've watched in my home is Survivor.
Oh, really?
Literally every single night of the pandemic, we get together and we watch like an episode of Survivor.
40 seasons.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, let me just say, as a member of the CBS Broadcast Network, we thank you for that.
I love it. I'd love to have Jeff Probst on the show. Yeah, I think he's my guy.
Yeah. It's funny though. I love watching you guys. I love like people who have these really interesting relationships, and I like that. But I don't love reality shows. There's something like life is too real right in the moment. I can't get into that, man. I need escape. I'm totally into like weird subtitled shows. Like I started watching this one called Borgen, which is set in Denmark. And when the premise is the first woman prime minister of Denmark. First of all, you're like, wait, which is Denmark, which is Sweden? And you're like doing the map in your head, right. But it's very compelling. Anything with subtitles just takes me away. I feel very happy about that.
Borgen.
All right, guys, you're fantastic. If you ever need the wisdom or the accolades, and you need to just play this back to yourselves, and you can play that little. Okay?
Thanks, Jill. Great to meet you.
Congratulations. Really great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us for the Dell Technologies PodFerence After Show. To find more participating podcasts like the ones we discussed today, search for Dell Technologies PodFerence on the Odyssey app, or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts at the end of this episode. You can also check out the Odyssey YouTube channel. Now, remember, this is going on all week, and tomorrow we've got David Brown of Business Wars. It's going to be a great show, so you will be able to tune right in, and we want to thank you again for watching today. Talk to you tomorrow.